Hello and welcome to True Performance. I'm your host, Chris Widener. True performance is the ideal accomplishment of an aspiration, goal, or objective that benefits everyone involved. Here with me today is the founder and creator of True Performance, Zig Ziglar. Zig, welcome.
Well, thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah. You know, you travel all around the world and you talk about peak performance. And a lot of times when people think of peak performance, they think about what we do and maximizing our efforts and achievements and that type of thing. But one of the things that you feel is really important to a person truly being able to commit to a really awesome performance is their relationships and the relationships that surround them. Can you tell us why relationships are so important and how they relate to true performance?
Well, if you think about it for a moment, there are very few successful Lone Rangers. Most of us have a strong need. As a matter of fact, I could almost say every person has a strong need for support groups of some kind or another. Family, friends, the people they work with on the job, the people they play with if they're in an athletic team. And so those relationships play a major role in just how happy they are, how satisfied they are with their life, how much joy is in there, how much success they enjoy in life. And when you clearly understand that everybody needs encouragement from time to time, and the fact that we have other people we can relate to and talk with and be around, those relationships are just critically important.
Yeah. You talked about support groups, and I know that you've had people all throughout your life that have supported your career, your family. Tell us about some of the people who've made an impact on you through these deep and meaningful relationships.
Well, let me start by saying that on my wall of gratitude, one of the first people on it was my first grade teacher. Now, my dad had died. I had all of the childhood diseases when I was in the first grade. I missed 4 months of school. Mrs. DeMint Warren, my teacher, would come out to the house every day, twice a week, and teach me the lessons I had missed and tell me what we had in front of us. Had she not done that, then I would have been drafted out of high school during World War II. As it was, I was able to finish the first grade. Otherwise, I would have failed had it not been for her, and I would have just been drafted and would never have seen the inside of a college door. But because I had that high school diploma, I was able to be tested by the Naval Air Corps, the V5 program, and got into that program, and they put me in college to begin with. Now, as a 10th of 12 children, the chances of me going to college were absolute, somewhere between slim and none. Right. You know, when in those situations, depression was going on. There was no chance for that. But because of her, I was able to get into the college program, and it literally affected every area of my life.
For the whole rest of your life, I mean.
Absolutely, no question about it.
People we meet all along the way, they impact our life and change the directions in little places that we may not know at the time.
Absolutely, and you never know which person is going to impact your life the most. A man who I did not like impacted my life.
Really?
He gave me some advice that I very badly needed. I didn't like him, but I loved what he had to say. Later, we became good friends. So people and the way you treat people is so important.
Yeah, not only for the way that they impact us, but I don't know if people really understand how much we impact other people. We kind of go about our day and we don't realize it. The things we might say to them might impact them for a lifetime.
Absolutely, and our attitude, the way we approach and do everything, also they will be observing and either approving or disapproving of it. And so our impact is impacted by who we are and what we are and the way we handle ourselves.
Yeah. Who else is on that wall of gratitude? I mean, I know you've got, what, 27 people on?
Just 26.
Just 26. Okay. Well, there's going to be somebody in the future, I'm sure, you'll add up onto the wall. But tell us about some of the other people that have impacted your life.
Well, one of the people that impacted my life a great deal was my history teacher when I went to Hines. It was junior college in those days, and he made a statement that really impacted my relationships in many ways when he said, those of us who have an ability to do more than just provide for our own needs need to find those who cannot do that and reach down and lift them up And the bottom line is he was really talking about race and sexism at that particular point. And remember now, this was many, many years ago. And the bottom line is, as he taught that class in history, I made a commitment then that I was going to be involved in doing more than providing for Zig. And it really did make a huge impact in my life. He just was a remarkable man in so many ways and impacted everything that I do today.
You know, women.
His name is Coach Joby Harris. He was he's a football coach and a good one.
Yeah, women seem to be better at creating groups of friends. And men, it seems to me, and this is a generality, of course, seem to be less able to develop really good friendships that surround them, that they have, you know, meaningful, regular interactions with. Have there been some men that you have surrounded yourself with over the years that you enjoy time together, just having fun, playing golf or whatever, but also really speak into each other's lives and commit to each other? And can you tell us a little bit about some of those?
Yes, I have, but let me address one of the observations you just made about women and all, because women are dramatically more relationship-driven than men are. Men are more driven themselves. And the truth is, in our society today, we have become, and hooray for me, to heck with you, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to look out for number one, and I have to step on somebody's toes. That's going to be all right. Well, the bottom line, we have more relationship problems today than ever in the history of our country. And when we understand that we do need that relationship with others to have a fulfilled life, we are part of a team. As I sit here, you and I talking and chatting and so forth, I realize that if the technicians were not here doing all of this, this would never see the light of day anywhere by anybody. So every person is important in their lives. And just to give you another simple little illustration about that, one of the things that fascinated me, do you remember the year that Green Bay played Denver in the Super Bowl?
Vaguely.
Okay, vaguely. Okay. Well, that particular year in the National Football League, 44 of the players came from that participated on the opening day practice session for the NFL that year. 44 of them came from Notre Dame. Wow. 36 of them came from Penn State. That's over 5% of all of the players. Now, how did two schools manage to do that? There are hundreds of schools that play football. Well, one of the things they do at those two schools, and the only other school is the University of Southern California who does this, they do not put the names of the players on the jerseys.
Oh, yeah, sure.
You mean it makes that much difference? Absolutely. Who gets all the publicity, the major share of the publicity on a football team, Chris?
A quarterback.
Quarterback. Who gets the second most attention?
Running back.
Running back. And the third?
Wide receiver.
Wide receiver.
Right.
Okay.
All the guys that get the ball.
That's right. That's exactly right. But talk to the coach and say, Coach, do you really need that big old 330-pound offensive lineman? He'll tell you, only if we want to win.
Right, exactly.
Well, what about that 295-pound defensive end? Do you really need it? Only if we want to win. Sure. So, in other words, what they're saying is every person is important. And what they do in those schools is they make it crystal clear that 11 men on offense, 11 men on defense, and 11 men on special teams, those are the teams that really win when they respect each other, when they play together as a team. When the family learns that, when the business climate learns that, as a matter of fact, the objective of every CEO in any company is to get everybody on the same page. Everybody following a whistler that really says, here's the best way to do it. Learn from each other, cooperate with each other, and the team can do so much more. One of the acrostics for team is together everyone achieves more. So individually they win. Now these individual players from those two schools, Notre Dame and Penn State and USC, were fabulous players individually, but they also were strong team players.
Yeah. Why do you suppose it is that our natural tendency is to think of ourselves and shy away from people who are different than us? And you know what I'm saying? Those sort of natural built-in relationship problems. And how do we overcome those?
Well, a lot of people, you know, there's an ego question sometimes, and sometimes it's they're so shy and timid that they don't really know and understand how fear enters the picture. A lot of people are afraid to step out on occasion because they are embarrassed or feel they will embarrass themselves. They need to understand, basically, that the way they are built, what their talent and abilities are. A lot of times people say, well, you know, they have the poor little old me attitude. When in reality, you know, if you think about it for a moment, just consider that if man can take moldy bread and make penicillin out of it, just consider what God can make out of you.
Yeah.
So when we understand that we are special, we were designed for accomplishment, engineered for success, then we are a little more likely to be friendly with other people. Now, we need to understand that a lot of people have had a background of abuse, and so they are a little more frightened about it. But, Chris, I've noticed, even in the building which we house our office in, that so many times we greet people or fail to greet people even with a smile. Many times I will say good morning to somebody and won't even get a response of any kind. Instead of that, I believe if we would simply smile and say, good morning, how are you? That gives us a chance at least to open a dialogue, you know, and let people know that, yes, we're friendly, we're harmless, we're not going to hurt you, you know. But so many times people, when they respond to each other, it's not really a very friendly one and not an uplifting one. How many times you ask somebody how you doing and they'll say, oh, not too bad. Or, well, fair to middling, I guess, or under the circumstances, or so far so good. Well, years ago, I started doing something, and the response has just been so wonderful. When people ask me how I'm doing, I say I'm doing better than good. And, you know, it's amazing the number of people say, you what? I said, yeah.
How can you be better than good? It's only 7 in the morning.
Yeah, that's right. They say, well, how can you be like that? I said, well, I'm young and strong and happy, and I married a beautiful red-headed lady 59 years ago. You know, why shouldn't I be doing better than good? And you know, people relate to that. The better than good response is really an optimistic, upbeat, positive affirmation which identifies who you are and where you are. Now, most people want to build relationships with people who are upbeat, optimistic, and enthusiastic instead of with people who walk around looking like the cruise director for the Titanic. You know?
Now, you bring up a really interesting point, and I know you know this old proverb that the tongue has the power of life and death.
Right.
And the way that we speak to other people creates relationships. I mean, it can be the determining factor in how well a relationship goes. If you speak positively to somebody or you speak negatively to somebody. Can you talk a little bit about maybe there's people today that are watching and they're in a team atmosphere in a business, place of work, and how can we give them some advice on how to create powerful relationships and powerful team by the way we speak to people?
Pardon. Charles Osgood, the CBS merchant, word merchant, says that compared to the spoken word, a picture is a pitiful thing indeed. When we clearly understand the power of the voice itself, we will be more careful about what we use that voice for, because that influences either positively or negatively. You remember Martin Luther King's magnificent speech, I Have a Dream? That changed a lot of lives. You remember the few words that Rosa Parks said when the bus driver told her to go to the back of the bus? She just said, my feet hurt. And she refused to get up and go back. Well, the words she said really inspired the feet of literally millions of people in the African-American community to stand up and start walking forward, as well as a lot of people in the white community who recognized the impact of what was being said. You know, when Churchill made that famous speech, you know, as England was in danger, the free world was in danger, his words lifted the spirits and their resolve was strengthened. We can do the same thing. Sometimes a simple little, that was really a neat job, makes a great deal of difference in somebody's life. You did that wonderfully well. I was proud of you for the way you handled that situation. It influenced me and impacted my life. When we understand the power that we have, and I read one study which said in an average person's life that as many as 1,500 people over a period of years are influenced by what that person says and does.
What about telling people thank you and just speaking kindly in that way? Is that important?
Well, thank you, that's just good manners.
Yeah.
Being kind to people just makes common sense. I mean, what you send out is what you get back. And so when you're nice to others, people are generally nice for you.
Yeah.
As a general rule, when you say something nice to someone, then they will respond in kind, or they will remember you, or they certainly, in most cases, will say thank you. And everybody needs that sort of thing in their lives.
Yeah. I'd like to talk a little bit about family, because I know family has been so important to you, and the way that we speak to our family. I'm always amazed that we would never say things to people outside the family, and yet there are some people who, inside the family, they'll say things that they would never say outside the family. Why is that, do you think?
Well, I think it's just simply lack of having a role model in many cases when they were children.
Right.
And if the way the father treats the mother influences both sons and daughters in the relationship they will develop later on. One of my neighbors invited me to participate in their wedding, and in the process of the marriage, the question was brought up by this father to the daughter, why are you so certain that Matt is the right person for you? And she said, well, he's really, first of all, a neat guy, but second, I've watched the way his father treats his mother. So I know he will know how to treat me. So when you have that kind of inheritance and that kind of a role model, it makes a huge difference in that relationship that's developing and will end up in the marriage we were talking about.
A lot of people, I don't think, and you and I were talking about this before the show, they don't get the connection between work and family. They say, well, I can focus in on work and I can do my job, and then family's separate. I'm leaving work, I'm going home, but they don't realize that those things affect each other. Can you talk to us a little bit about why it's so important to maintain a positive, healthy family atmosphere, not just because that's important in and of itself, but how it affects how we perform on our jobs?
Well, the reality is all of us are human. All of us have emotional needs. All of us need support from one area or another. The thing that has really impacted my life in that direction is the redhead. Now, when I talk about my wife, I always call her the redhead. She's a decided redhead. I mean, one day she just decided she is going to be a redhead. Well, anyhow, our relationship has just been so remarkable. Never will I forget one morning in the bedroom, we were having a quiet cup of coffee. And things, neither one of us were seeing very much, and we'd been married about 25 years at that point. And she looked at me and quietly said, honey, I wish I were younger. And I said, for crying out loud, why? She said, if I were younger, I could be married to you even longer. Now, how do you build a relationship like that? Well, I got to tell you, Chris, it's not by the big gifts or the big honeymoon or the big anniversary celebrations. It's the little things that make all the difference in the world. Little things like, for example, when I met her on September 15th, 1944, 9:08 p.m., YWCA, Jackson, Mississippi.
This made an impact in that, I'm guessing.
I'm not going to tell you I was in love with her, but I will tell you this. I knew I wanted to get to know her a whole lot better.
Yeah.
And 2 years, 2 months, and 11 days later of relentless pursuit, she finally said, yes, I do. Well, she's made such a huge difference in my life. The first 25 years, literally, of our marriage, we had some real difficult financial times. We struggled through a whole lot. In one 5-year stretch, I was a wandering generality. I was in 17 different deals, and that's all there were. And yet, Chris, during all of those years, not one time did she ever say, honey, it sure would be nice if we had a little more money, or if we had a little more balance. She never said those things. She always said, you can do it. Tomorrow's going to be better. But the two things she said that impacted me the most was, I love you and I believe in you. I got to tell you that had it not been for the relationship, see, she was my constant cheerleader. She cheered me on every day. She prayed for me every night. That's one of the major reasons why I've been able to do the things that I've been able to do. She and I were a team. We were not two individuals.
Right.
I love the story of the little guy that was, confronted by three big bullies, and they gave indications they were going to obliterate him, and any one of them could have done it. Smart little fella. He looked at the biggest of the bullies, took a little stick that was laying on the ground, drew a line on the ground, backed up 7 or 8 paces, looked at the big guy in the eye, and said, now you just step across that line. The big bully confidently stepped across the line. The little guy just smiled and says, now we're both on the same side. When husband and wife understand they're both on the same side, they both want a lot of the same things, and they understand that together they can achieve so much more than they can individually. And since they're living together, and since everything that happens at home affects the attitude of that individual on the job, in the public, and everywhere they go. So if we can leave home every day in the assurance that our mate loves us, that they are encouraging us, that they are praying for us, that they're working with us, that we are on the same page, we have the same objectives, and that's what courtship before marriage is for. But courtship after marriage is the fulfillment. You continue to court all during your lifetime. I try to score points with that redhead every day of my life. I'm still selling this. And all of marriage is a constant sales process. Little things, like, for example, in all the years we've been married, less than a dozen times has she ever opened her own car door when I was with her. But every time I walk around the car, I'm reminded, here's the most important person in my life. Here's the one that I love above all others. And that constant reminder is so important. When I travel, and I do that often, one of the things I started doing a few years ago, I used to take my money and just fold it over and put it in my pant pocket, and in the evening I'd lay it on the bathroom counter. Well, she started counting my money, and if she didn't think I had enough to cover emergencies where cash was needed, she'd go get me some more. Now, that's not a big deal, but what it says is a big deal. It says, honey, I love you very much. You're very important to me. I'll be more comfortable knowing that if there is an emergency where cash is needed, you will neither be embarrassed, delayed, or perhaps endangered. The people who court each other throughout life. I frequently tell couples, if you court each other every day and are faithful to yourself every day, then you've got a marriage that will last and last and last. And, Chris, it gets better all the time. The Bible says the two shall become one. Well, the redhead now, and when I talk about it, that's what I call her, but when I'm talking to her, it's Sugar Baby, and her name is Jean. Well, we do those things that I'm talking about now. When, for example, one of the little things I do and get a big kick out of it is when the phone rings at my office at home, that's where I do most of my writing and phoning and so forth, I always answer it, good morning, this is Gene Ziglar's happy husband. And for the benefit of the husbands, I score points with that one. I guarantee you, I sure do.
Now tell us a little bit about your kids and how you've been a father and partnered with Jean to raise those kids to be the kids that they've become.
Well, one of the things we've always done is we've been very, very careful not to have a favorite. We had 4 children, and we never had one child over the years to say, well, she was your favorite or he was your favorite. I only had the one son. But the reality is, in the latter years, our oldest daughter started claiming to be the favorite child. And the other, we're all so close with each other. They kind of laughed and said, yeah, Susie's a favorite, and we all know that. But nobody really believed that she was a favorite because they all were treated equally. Raising those kids with the assurance. And, Chris, if I've had one of my children to tell me this once, I've had all of them to tell me this a dozen times. It started with my son one day when I said, son, if anybody were to ask you what you like best about your dad, what would you say? Without hesitation, he said, "Dad, I would say the thing I like best about my dad is that he loves my mom." I said, "Son, why would you say that?" He said, "I'd say that because I know that Mom loves you, and I know that as long as you treat her right and she treats you right, I'll never have to choose between living with you or living with her." I had no way of knowing, but that very day, one of his best friends had to make a choice between living with Mom or living with Dad. Yes, showing respect and love for each other, getting on the same page. I've said it 1,000 times in public seminars. Had it not been for my wife, I'm going to tell you that very few people would be listening to me today. You and I would not be doing this program together had it not been for the love, support, and encouragement she's given me. When I leave the house, I'm completely secure that everything is fine there. And so I can go to the office or go to my speech and not have to worry about what I have left behind. I know it's secure.
Now, you've traveled all around the world, and you've done that for decades. And especially, I imagine, when the kids were little, you were off by yourself, right? And
right.
So how did that work? Because I know a lot of people travel. A lot of the salespeople that are watching the show travel. How can they best develop that relationship while they're off traveling around working? How can they keep that relationship strong?
Well, we have a lot of communication availabilities today. They've got telephones. We've got emails. You know, we can just do a lot of things. But one of the things I've always done is I would make absolutely certain that we are in touch by phone when I arrive at the destination. Now, she just went to Richmond, Virginia with me, and always for years and years and years when I'd leave town, I would call each one of my children and say, "This is your airport call." And they would laugh, you know, and when I got back, I'd always call them and say, "This is your airport call." Well, on this trip, I said, "Sweetheart, why don't you call the kids today and tell them this is your airport call?" You'd be amazed at the delight they got out of that. Every one of them just laughed, and one of them even said, "Well, this is weird." One of our granddaughters said that, you know. But that little thing like that, showing that affection and intimacy. Women crave affection and intimacy a lot more than men do, but all of us love it. The redhead is known as a happy hugger, because if it's moving, she'll stop and hug it. If it's not moving, she'll dust it off and sell it. We have a relationship there, and Chris, probably the most grateful thing I am for in my life is this. In an hour and a half's drive, easy drive from our home, we can reach every one of our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren. Wow. We've always been close. My son's a president of our company. My son-in-law is the chief operating officer. The editor of my books is my youngest daughter. We are close as a family.
Terrific stuff, and we're out of time for the day, but appreciate your words and a person who has really lived the relationships and the wisdom that you share, and that's good stuff. It's going to help a lot of people who are trying to do work, but they're also trying to do relationships and family, and lots of good words there, so thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'd like for you, our audience, to remember that relationships are vital to your personal growth, success, and true performance. That's it for this week, and we'll see you next time.